Hey, it's NPR's Book of the Day. I'm Andrew Limbong.
Well, we're always trying to angle a way to sell more books, and so we thought a sequel to The Firm 30 years later might work.
This is John Grisham, author of The Firm, The Pelican Brief, The Client, The Rainmaker, and on and on and on. All week long, we've been talking to authors who've gotten books adapted into movies, and you can't do that without talking to John Grisham. The Firm wasn't his first book, but it was the one that blew up his career. It got turned into a movie with Tom Cruise as hotshot lawyer Mitch McDeere trying to run from the FBI and the mob at the same time.
I gotta get lost for a few hours. Something I gotta do.
When the movie came out in 30 years ago, in 93, I saw the movie 3 times the first week. Once was a premiere in New York, a premiere in Memphis, and a premiere in Oxford, Mississippi, where we were living at the time. And after 3 straight viewings, I got it. I knew what was going. I knew the story, I knew what was going to happen, and I said, I'm really tired of this story. And so over the years, I would be surfing through the internet, or the cable channels, and I'd see The Firm, and I would immediately keep going. I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to relive that story. I never go back and read my books. I just can't do that.
Now, 3 decades later, John Grisham has written a follow-up to The Firm, and we'll hear more about it right after the break.
Support for NPR comes from FX, presenting A Murder at the End of the World, starring Emma Corrin, Clive Owen, and Britt Marling. Emma plays Darby Hart, a sleuth and tech-savvy hacker. She joins an exclusive group invited to a retreat. When one of the guests is found dead, Darby must prove it was murder before the killer takes another life. FX's A Murder at the End of the World, streaming November 14th only on Hulu.
Okay, this follow-up to The Firm is titled The Exchange. Mitch goes globetrotting to deal with some contracts in Libya over a bridge. But before all that starts, there's this prelude of sorts where Mitch does some pro bono work for a man convicted of murder on death row who ends up killing himself. Grisham himself does advocacy work on behalf of wrongly convicted people in prison, but Mitch, in this part of the story, seems kind of tired, kind of jaded by the whole do-gooder process. How closely does that reflect your feelings on that sort of work?
Well, I've done a lot of innocence work. As a writer, I've written one work of nonfiction called The Innocent Man. Mm-hmm. I've written fictional stories about wrongful convictions. The Guardian comes to mind. The Confession comes to mind. It's something I work with almost every day. I'm on the board of the Innocence Project in New York and Centurion Ministries based out of Princeton. And all we do is innocence work. There are thousands of innocent people in prison, and we're trying to help get them out. There are many, many innocence initiatives and groups and nonprofits around the country. We coordinate with all of them. We're all in the same business trying to get innocent people out. And that's just become a cause of mine, or not a cause, but an interest of mine since The Innocent Man, which was published in 2006. That book really took me into the world of wrongful convictions where I had never spent any time before. And I'm fascinated by it. Fascinated because of the legal injustices, but also as a storyteller. Every wrongful conviction and exoneration is worthy of a book because of the tremendous drama, conflict, suffering, injustice. Anytime you have a lot of injustice or suffering, you have great fiction. And those are wonderful stories, as sad as they are. Mm-hmm. And I've always been drawn to those stories. I'm writing my second nonfiction book now. Hopefully it'll come out a year from now. It's called Framed, and it's a collection of 10 of my favorite mm-hmm. wrongful conviction stories involving inmates who were exonerated, men who were actually, and one woman, actually innocent, yet spent 10, 20, 30 years in prison for somebody else's crime. That happens all the time. All the stories are fascinating. But some are more fascinating than the others. And so I picked out 10 of my favorites, 10 stories you cannot believe. When you read them, the initial reaction when people read these stories, they say, this can't be true. This can't be true in this country. Tell me this is fiction. Well, I still get letters from people around the world who read The Innocent Man and say, this has got to be fiction. This can't be true, but it is true.
it's hard to have faith in a system where something like this happens so often. And I was wondering where you were on that, like since you do so much work on this topic.
Yeah, when I was a young lawyer, I had a lot of faith in the jury system. I felt like juries usually do what's right because of the collected wisdom and experiences of 12, average folks, and we're all average. But I'm not so sure now. There's so many wrongful convictions. So many times juries are misled by the authorities they are supposed to trust. We're supposed to trust the police and the prosecutors. We believe in those people, the judges. That's the system, and we want to believe that it always works, and it doesn't. But after so many reading so many cases and studying so many cases and involved in so many cases where the jury's just brought back, the wrong verdict, I've got some doubts about the jury system.
It's funny. I was listening back to, I went into our archives, and I found this profile of you that we ran in 1994. I think it was Noah Adams. He spoke to you. You were still living in Oxford.
Yeah.
You think from the piece, it sounded like you guys were did the interview from above a bookstore.
We went Square Books.
Yeah.
The upstairs at Square Books in Oxford. Yeah.
Yeah, and you say a couple things that are kind of funny. And one thing you were like, with Hollywood, I can do whatever I want. It's like wow, like you knew you were like where you were at the game, at the time. And then you also said something similar. You said like it was important for you guys to not change.
Right.
What do you think has helped you not not get your head big?
Well, what are you going to do? Divorce your wife? Start using cocaine? Get alcoholic? Go through rehab 4 times? What am I supposed to do to really get some attention here? I mean, I'm not that kind of person. But speaking of Hollywood, I probably said that in 1994, and I probably meant it. It's been 15 years since we had a movie made now. The difference between now and then is astonishing. Back then it was automatic. The first 5 or 6 movies were, big box office hits with big, famous actors, actresses, directors. I didn't do it. I just wrote the book. Mm-hmm. But we got great screenwriters, and these movies all did well, in the domestic market, the foreign markets, and everybody made a lot of money. And for some reason, that model doesn't work today. It just doesn't work with Hollywood. Mm-hmm. 20 years ago, they started making. They want to pour all their money into, cartoons and Spider-Man 10 stuff like that, and they make very few smart adult dramas. Mm-hmm. So, that's one reason. There are a bunch of reasons, but. I'm not nearly as cocky about Hollywood as I was in 1994. I can promise you.
Yeah, it does strike me. So, like, when people bemoan the state of the Hollywood industry today, right, and they say like, "Oh, they don't make movies like they used to," what they're talking about are like the kind of movies that are based on your books, right? Like that sort of mid-budget, not super expensive, but not
right.
like dirt cheap,
right.
but still gripping, but like doesn't have a bunch of explosions and dudes taking their shirts off.
I don't know why. I mean, I really don't know why they can't find a market for the movie that cost only $100 million.
Yeah.
And the firm cost $75 million 30 years ago. I think Firm, Pelican Brief, Client, Time to Kill, Rainmaker, they were all pretty much in that range, 50 to 100 million to make. And they both, grossed a whole lot more than that around the world. But again, I think the mentality, again, I do not pretend to explain or to tell you what the mentality of Hollywood is. It's not defined by any one person, studio, company, whatever. It's just a whole industry. And now all the attention has shifted to television in the past 20 years. Mm-hmm. And we've all enjoyed that. We all have our great shows that we binge on and enjoy watching. But because everything shifted that way, there's a glut now, the glut of, far too many TV shows, and maybe, just maybe, we're going back to the old-fashioned movie. I don't know. The truth of it is, I've stopped worrying about it. I cannot do anything today to get The Exchange made into a movie. If I gave the film rights to a studio, if I wrote the screenplay for free, if I did all that, it would not move the ball down the field. I'm not a filmmaker, don't want to be. I'm not a producer. So that's not my world. If you can't control something, don't worry about it. And I've stopped worrying a long time ago. I stopped the frustration a long time ago. And all I can do is write the best book possible, the best book I can. And hopefully somebody will read it and say, we can adapt this into a really good movie. I would love to see all of my books adapted to film because we all love a good movie.
Mm-hmm. So I take it, this ennui that you're feeling about like what else can you do, it was hard earned. So were you sort of like frustrated? Was there a time when you were banging your head against the wall and it just wasn't happening?
I didn't bang my head, but I threw some screenplays into the fireplace. Reading a bad screenplay that was expected to be good, or one that was written by, a talented screenwriter, sent by a director that we had confidence in, and it's a bad screenplay. I've had that frustration many times, to the point where I stopped reading screenplays. And but again, that's water under the bridge. I'm no longer worried about. We have half a dozen books under contract right now for film and for television. They're all option deals. Mm-hmm. They'll pay you, some money for an 18-month option, and the options always expire. Mm-hmm. I get the rights back, and we try to sell it again. That's been going on for 10 years. And again, that could be very frustrating, and it was very frustrating for a while when I let it be frustrating, and then I stopped worrying about it.
Mm-hmm. Are you like tired at all? Like you have this like grind of a schedule, and I just imagine you've never been like, well, maybe let's take like a year or two off.
No, you know what? It's not nearly as hectic as I make it look, because people are always asking for something. There's always somebody, wanting something, whether it's a speech, a trip, an award, a festival, a book signing, a tour, whatever, a fundraiser. And there are a lot of demands. But most people think I'm just extremely busy and exhausted, so they don't ask. So the ones who do ask apologize for asking, and most folks just leave me alone. And so, when I don't want to do something, I say, look, I'm far too busy for that. I may have nothing on the calendar, but I'll just say if I don't want to do it, I don't do it. I'm way too. I'd love to, but I'm busy.
Yeah. You just like, let me check the calendar. Oops, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, got a
My
conflict.
Bad. Yeah.
Got a conflict.
I wish I could help you out. So I wish I could help you out.
Yeah, and published in 55 languages, which is just about the whole world. I can't name them all, but it covers pretty much the whole world. And so I just tell people, well, I'd love to be there, but I'm in Australia that week. And
that's the same language.
And they buy it every time. Right? I'm in Sweden next month. That day, I'm sorry, I can't do it. And people buy it every time.
Well, John Grisham, thank you so much.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Do you ever feel like your laptop just keeps going, but you are completely drained?
I think a lot of us don't realize how much pain we live in because of our interactions with computing.
NPR's Body Electric, a special interactive series investigating how to fix the relationship between our tech and our health. Listen in the TED Radio Hour feed wherever you get your podcasts.
This message comes from NPR sponsor Citi. They're not an airline, but their network connects global businesses in nearly 160 local markets. With over 2 centuries of experience, they're not just any bank. They are Citi. More at citi.com/weareciti.
This message comes from NPR sponsor Ford Mustang Mach-E. With the bold style and performance of a Mustang, this all-electric SUV offers seamless technology. so you never have to choose between what you want and what you need. More at Ford.com/Mustang Mach-E.